are joined and we have the honor of welcoming the Honorable Minister of Justice, Delroy Chuck, QC. He's also the Member of Parliament from Northeast St. Andrew, where the Grand Spend community, from which we're coming live, can be found. Grand Spend Peace Park and the Grand Spend model of creating peace in communities has really been a big part of the conversation about what a good partnership between the state, vis-a-vis the police, and the community members, the use of sports, entertainment, community building activities,
in making better law, as many of the points you have raised have been given serious consideration. I know that as chairman of a few of these committees, especially the NIMS, that your presentation was extremely good, and we were able to modify the bill in order to reflect a number of points that you raised. I know you now have one in relation to the Integrity Commission, which I have looked at, and we will give it some consideration. And many of the presentations that you have participated in have been excellent. I also would like to congratulate you for highlighting some of the many injustices that have been meted out to citizens across Jamaica. And in fact, the fact that you identify the role that the security forces play in really causing unnecessary hurt, pain, and harm to people forced the Jamaican government to form Indicom. So Indicom is now doing really a lot of the work that you may have done in the past. So your work has been reduced. But it doesn't mean that you should not undertake additional work. And I will give you some indication shortly where I think you should embark on. Let me begin, first of all, by saying your mission of justice for all rings very well with me. Because not only as Minister of Justice, but from my days as a law lecturer, and then as Member of Parliament, Cabinet Minister, justice has been a passion. Because unless we're able to provide justice for all people, then there can be no peace. And we want peace in this country, and therefore there must be a basis for people to get justice. Let me say, however, that justice is not one-sided. Far too many persons believe that justice is only done when their side or their position or their issues are dealt with. Justice is about balance. Balancing rights, balancing responsibilities. Justice is about hearing the other side and giving due respect to the other side. Justice is about fair play. And unless there is fair play, people know that justice has not been done. And that is why lawyers speak about the ode alteram parte rule, which means hear both sides, consider both sides. Because if you only hear one side and you act based on what you have heard from one side, without hearing the other side, there can be no justice. So it's very important that we recognize that even when we hear both sides, there's usually a third side. So that we need to bear that in mind as we try to do justice. And when we say justice for all, it is very important that we recognize that there are many participants in any transaction who have concerns and issues which must be addressed. Jamaicans for Justice, like many human rights organizations, have been seen as organizations that tend to look after the injustice caused to offenders. And many human rights organizations, like Jamaicans for Justice, see the need to control the state, because the state, with all its resources, if it abuses the powers that it has, can in fact create a great deal of injustice. So yes, human rights organizations tend to focus primarily on the injustices caused by the state. But I dare say, over the years or the decades in Jamaica, we have far too many wrongdoers criminals, the corrupt, the indisciplined, the lawless, who regrettably have been emboldened to feel that they are above the law. And if they breach the law, they can always get various organizations to speak for them. We have to be very careful. At the very pinnacle that must be respected is the rule of law. And where people breach the law, and there's good evidence that they've breached the law, then wrongdoers must be brought to justice. Sure, they must get all the advice, all the representation that is needed so that they can have fair play, that they can have their day in court. But what has happened now is that the courts are so overwhelmed, so overburdened, that when people try to go to court to get justice now, it's almost an impossible task. So going to court to get justice, the delays caused create more injustice than justice. Put off, delayed, not only for months, but for years. And the challenge is to get a justice system, a court system, where when people have conflicts or need to get justice, they can get it within a reasonable time. And I've said to the Chief Justice and to the judiciary and to the courts that any case in the Supreme Court that goes beyond 3 years, there's not going to be justice, a proper, appropriate justice. Indeed, once the case goes beyond 3 years, you wonder whether the witnesses and what they recall is really accurate. And the end result of it is that after a couple of years, in fact, after a couple of months, unless the matter is tried quickly, witnesses disappear. So the matters drag on and on. And therefore, the need to have adjudication dealt with in a timely manner is absolutely urgent. In truth, I want to congratulate the present Chief Justice because he's now focusing on statistics. And these statistics and the data will assist him and the policymakers in getting policies dealt with properly so that the system can improve and all the policies can be data-driven. And when I say that the courts are overburdened, I can give you a few statistics. We have over 70,000 cases coming to the parish courts every year, in addition to 280,000 road traffic tickets. And when 1,000 case comes to court on a day, and only 100 motorists turn up, the 900 that don't turn up, the court marshal has to go and call each name 3 times. So if 900 traffic ticketers or traffic violators don't turn up, that court, after they've dealt with the 100 that turn up, in order to ensure that they acknowledge that 900 haven't turned up, each time the marshal has to go there and call each name 3 times. And then you have to write up 900 warrants, which is impossible. And for those 900 warrants to be served, the burden is just too much. But that's a matter which have to be dealt with at another time. What I can tell you, Jamaicans for Justice, I will need your support as we bring justice to every nook and corner of Jamaica. That is how we are going to ensure justice for all. It's not going to be obtained in the courts alone. We have to find ways and means to get justice across every corner, every byway and highway. And that is why I am on a mission to take justice right across Jamaica and to urge the people of Jamaica to use the justice services, the alternate justice services that are offered by the Ministry of Justice. In every parish, we have a justice center. In every parish, using the justice centers and other areas, we have restorative justice, we have child diversion, we have victim services, and access to mediation and to legal services. In addition to those 14 justice centers, we have an additional 6 restorative justice centers. So we now have 20 restorative justice centers across Jamaica. And restorative justice is really a most appropriate mechanism for people to resolve their disputes and their conflicts. It is not well known, and this minister intends to go out and make sure that every Jamaican know about restorative justice, because it is an appropriate means for people to resolve their disagreements. What is restorative justice? In a nutshell, very simple. When a wrong has been committed, how do you urge the wrongdoer to accept responsibility? That's the main challenge. How do you urge the wrongdoer to accept the fact that what you said, what you did, the injury you caused, the hurt and pain you caused to a victim, that you're wrong, and you accept that you're wrong? If the wrongdoer can do so, then the next challenge is to urge the victim to forgive. And if the victim is willing to forgive, then the parties can be brought together, either in a school community, or the church, or the general community, to sit in a restorative justice circle to really discuss the harm caused and to look at ways and means to restore the relationship. That is the basis of restorative justice. It has been extremely effective across the world. That is how Rwanda used it after 1,000 killings in genocide. That is the Truth and Reconciliation of South Africa. That is what they use in most developed countries, in schools. And I'm happy to report that the Minister of Education and myself have forged an MOU that we are going to bring restorative justice to every school in Jamaica. We hope to have an MOU with all the churches. I know the Church of God say they have 200 churches, and we are going to have an MOU with them soon. And I'm in discussion at another level with the Seventh-day Adventist Church that has over 750 churches to bring restorative justice to every church in Jamaica. And then after that to every institution, so that conflicts can be dealt with without having to use abuses and further violence. We have victim services where persons who have been abused are encouraged to go and get not only counseling, but to find ways and means to avoid retaliation and revenge. Because nothing caused more crime in this country than reprisals. Reprisal is where persons feel that they can't get justice, so they take it. They must find ways and means to get justice. So revenge and reprisal
if they can't do it themselves. They employ others, and that is why you have so many contract killing and contract shooting in Jamaica. But the end result of reprisal and revenge is a circle, a cycle of violence. And when you have a cycle of violence, you have more killings, more shootings and hurt than you can imagine. And it is exactly what is happening in Jamaica. People believe the only way to get justice or to resolve their conflicts and their dispute is to use violence, to use further deadly force. And the end result, for years and decades, between families, between communities, is a cycle of violence. Violence of any form must be condemned, whether it is done by the individual or by the state. And that is why, Father Campbell, I am so much against the death penalty myself. And that is why those who are pushing the death penalty cease. Because when the state uses violence, which is what the death penalty is, to solve a problem, the state thinks it has solved a problem. But it is using violence and telling people that is how we solve problems. And anyone who has studied capital punishment will know that the history of capital punishment was the perpetuation of a cycle of violence. Those who read Charles Dickens, the great English writer, he informed that these young men who were now charged with murder were witnesses to the public hangings in England. And that is why England abolished public hangings, because it was a public spectacle. It was a basis on which people see a man being hanged, not only for murder, but for over 240 crimes. And what Dickens pointed out is that the very act of the state of public hanging was encouraging violence. And that is the truth why, having studied capital punishment, I'm totally against the use of it by the state to solve problems. And that is why we have a victim service office right across Jamaica. And we urge abused persons to really use the victim service offices. And we also have child diversion office in all the parishes. So where children become disorderly, commit some minor offenses, we are encouraging the police and the courts to refer them to child diversion. And we are promoting mediation. So the point, Jamaicans for Justice, we are in support of your mission. We ask you to use and to encourage the use of the alternate justice services, which will be available in every parish. Anybody who wants to know where to find these services can call 888 Justice, 888 Justice, which the Justice, I don't remember the actual number, but if they just look on their telephone and dial 888 Justice, toll free, an operator would be there, and they can get all the information of the various alternate justice services which will be available right across Jamaica. Let me say then, Jamaicans for Justice, that your mission, as I see it, is not only to encourage persons to find ways and means to get justice and to find the appropriate mechanisms, but we have an area which I really hope you will undertake. Domestic violence and domestic abuses are major problems in Jamaica. These are the silent victims who don't come forward. The women, the children, who are abused regularly by their partners and their parents need the support and the exposure of what is happening in the various communities. I'm just told Jamaicans for, 888 Justice is 587-8423. That's Jamaicans for Justice. Right, 587-8423. Now, what I would urge you, Jamaicans for Justice, is to make one of your target the assistance and support to those victims who suffer from domestic abuses and domestic violence. Far too many of our children are being beaten and thoroughly abused, and our women, and they have nowhere to turn. And I say, Jamaicans for Justice, not only should you be a mediator with them, but to urge them to go to the victim service offices. As we look for justice, the victims in the homes must be given some priority for attention. But apart from the victims of domestic violence and abuse, we must not ignore the victims of criminality right across Jamaica. If we are going to balance rights and responsibilities, then it's not only the offenders, but the victims who must be given as much support and care as is possible. As I say, the offices are there, available to comfort the victims. Assist me, Jamaicans for Justice, in referring these abused and victims of crime, violence, and domestic abuses to get some attention. I have no doubt, Jamaicans for Justice, that you will play your part. You will play your role. So as you seek justice for all, make sure that all parties in any unfortunate transaction, that they all play their part in bringing about a more peaceful Jamaica. If the people of Jamaica can get justice, there will be peace. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Justice Delroy Chuck. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a round of applause again for the presentation from the Minister, which I believe covers some very, very critical points on the journey to justice. It's something that Jamaicans admittedly feel we don't have enough access to. And so no matter what happens, if you're overcharged by the taxi driver by $50, we want some justice. If the rate that you're paying to the Jamaica Public Service you find to be disagreeable, we want some justice. If the cost for bread is going up, we want some justice. We feel denied access to justice. And I think the minister covered some critical areas where the rights and responsibilities of the citizen has to be looked at, the responsibility of the state, the legislature, the judicial system. All arms of the state must play a role in protecting and advancing justice, not in a way to seek expedience, but genuine and fair access. I do want to share some statistics from Jamaicans for Justice around their thematic areas. So they have covered some key areas over the last year, and 3 of those major ones include the states of emergency, marginalized and vulnerable groups. 19% of the cases that they have tackled fall in that category. And the third largest group of cases, 14% of that caseload, was around gender-based violence. So the organization has been doing a lot of work in that area. In fact, just behind me, there's a pull-up banner outlining the work that they offer to survivors of GBV around securing protection orders, occupation orders, custody orders, maintenance orders, and the court proceedings, monitoring and support process. So I want to say kudos to the JFJ team for recognizing how multifaceted the stakeholders are that the organization must serve. Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to you live from Radio Jamaica 94 FM. So if you're tuned in as part of the Radio Jamaica family, we welcome you to this morning's launch of the Justice for All campaign headed by Jamaicans for Justice. But certainly in the interest of inclusion, we mentioned the work that JFJ does with marginalized and vulnerable groups. In the interest of inclusion, we do have a live stream on the JFJ YouTube page. So if you are a hearing person listening to us on RJR, you know of someone who perhaps may be deaf and wants to have access to this information, please guide them to the YouTube page, Jamaicans for Justice. There is a sign language interpreter that will allow them to get access to this information as a key group being served by JFJ. I also want to take the opportunity to recognize and formally welcome His Excellency Ariel Fernandez of the Argentine Embassy, the ambassador to Jamaica from Argentina, who is with us today. So please make His Excellency welcome. And as we continue with this morning's program, I'd like to invite for remarks a board director with Jamaicans for Justice, mother of Matthew Lee, whose story I think truly underpins the importance of an organization such as JFJ, the gaps that exist even now as the state interacts with the community, and the road that we have to travel in creating access in a very robust and equal way for all Jamaicans. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Yvonne Lee.
Honorable Delroy Chuck, Minister of Justice, who had to leave, unfortunately. JFF board members, Mr. Hugh Faulkner of Indicom, His Excellency, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak briefly, not only as a JFJ board member, but also as a representative of a family who have suffered a tragic loss of a loved one and is waiting in vain for justice. Today, I'm here to endorse the JFF's launch of a campaign so that everyone will know their rights and responsibilities and have equal access to justice. As we have heard, simply put, human rights are our basic rights that belong to all. Because we are human, they are important means of protecting us from abuse, neglect, and isolation. Part of the JFJ's mandate is to focus on members of the society who are most vulnerable to abuse, from the government, the security force, and from other groups in the society who may violate one's human rights, such as employment agencies. The concept of human rights allows people to speak up when they experience abuse and corruption. It also empowers people and tells them that they deserve dignity from society, whether it's the government or work environment. Human rights encourage freedom of speech and expression without fear of brutal reprisals. Most of us are aware that we have human rights, but not all of us know what it means in a practical sense and when they are violated. I would like to draw your attention to one of the UN's recommendation that you are innocent until proven guilty. You have a right to defend yourself. You cannot be punished for someone else's crime. Without going into the details of our case, which happened in 2013, and as I said, we're still waiting. My son was denied this right. And when there was no one to turn to, neither government or other agency the JFJ, sorry, stepped in and provided that kind of support to help us through this period of grief. I must also recognize that Indicom had done a lot of work with us too and provided support, and I would like to applaud them for the work that they have done in this case, and for that, to bring it to where it is that I am now a newly appointed JFJ board member since recently. So, due to the lack of fear in speaking out, due to our not having the fear of speaking out, it caught the attention of media, a radio station, which aired it on, and I could call it nationwide news network, which also gave that kind of publicity, which triggers reaction from other people who had experienced the same situation. And so, we were, my daughter was contacted and went to Washington, D.C. with another victim's sister, and they met with decision makers and other advocacy group and aired their personal stories. This also was shown in Brazil at a large rally of human rights groups, and we got that attention there as well. Unfortunately, to date, due to the slow pace of the justice system, our family has not yet received justice, and I therefore call on the government and the Minister of Justice, sorry he had to leave, to give urgent attention to reforming the justice system and to take the necessary action in carrying out the recommendations of Amnesty International as stated in their report of November 2020. This also includes the need for a professional police force, well-trained and adequately resourced, which fully respects human rights. So there are a long list of recommendations which the government should address, and we're hoping that, that they will do so in a timely manner. We have been waiting, as I said, 2013, and now it's 2022, and we haven't received the justice yet. But I want to encourage victims of abuse and families not to fear and be bold and speak up, because hadn't we done that, and persevere, you can't report to Jamaicans for Justice that you have this situation and you leave it there and you want to let them handle it. You don't call when it's time for you to do your part and follow up, do what you need to do. You have a responsibility. Speak up, don't fear. I know that sometimes there are reprisals, and many of the victims that come from the inner city communities, they fall prey to abuse by the security forces. Let me tell you that you don't have to fear. We went live on TV and air our cases, and it went international. And we got the publicity from Amnesty International. We were part of the focus group that met and did, made the recommendations for the government to address these gaps in the justice system and to make Jamaica more safe. So we encourage you to do the same and, speak out, do your part. And we just want you to, we want to have a safer Jamaica. So in closing, I just want to thank JFJ for giving me this opportunity to share. And I know it helps because we have benefited from the counseling sessions and the focus groups that met at the office or at other locations that help us through these. I know that there are persons who are in the rural areas who do not have access to the resources to come to meetings and to follow up on their matters. But despite all of this, make a call to the JFJ. They will be there for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Lee, for sharing what undoubtedly must be a difficult reflection on your own experience as a citizen in Jamaica, seeking justice. Her reflection was not just a point to fill up the program. It was not just to share another story. It's an opportunity for us to learn, no matter where you are in society, no matter how you feel about your access to justice, to care about injustice, no matter where it shows up and who it impacts. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1963 said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Her reflection is meant to remind you that injustice still exists in our system. It is not easy to get access to justice in our system. After decades of advocacy, visibility, recommendations, support from the JFJ team, she's still waiting to access justice. And as long as that is Mrs. Lee and her family's reality, it is all of our reality. And it is all of our business. And so I hope you heard her story in that context. Yes, to empathize with what is certainly a difficult reality to grapple with daily, but also to resolve that we are going to take up our justice in our hand. If you feel wronged by anything that has happened to you, across the spectrum of rights you have, from your environmental rights to the physical rights you have over your body, to the rights you must enjoy as an employee in a company, if you sit down and allow the injustice to exist and say nothing, you become part of an unjust system. Because there's an obligation you have as a wronged party to speak up, to tell the truth and to be unrelenting, so that those who can help are prodded not just by their own interest in seeing justice done, but by your passion to ensure that you are not lost in the pool of all the other reports of injustice. And just to put in context the work and the weight of the JFJ team, I'm going to ask you to get your hands on a copy of the State of Justice report that chronicles the work they've done between 2020 and 2021. They received more than 600 complaints of human rights violations. 600. Due to the nature of those complaints, 297 were accepted, or 49%. So almost half of the cases that were reported to them, they were able to take up. Now, can you imagine having almost 300 active cases, pursuing justice for at least 300 individuals? You can't afford to sit down in your room and say you're going to wait on a call and you're going to wait on an email and you're going to wait to hear something. You have to be an active participant in this pursuit for justice. And that is why the JFJ Justice for All campaign is so important. Because it allows the citizen to feel armed and equipped to articulate, first of all, the right that has been breached or violated. The barrier that stands between them and the right they know they should have. Because if you don't know that your right has been violated, you can't even begin to speak up. And that, I think, is the crux of the matter. We say we want the justice, but we must first understand what the rights are that we have so we can properly defend them and pursue justice as a result. If you have any questions at all, I'm encouraging you to call the JFJ team at 876-755-4524. If you don't have any credit on your phone, if the landline is not connected right now, you can visit the website at JamaicансForJustice.org. If you do not feel aggrieved, but you would like to serve as a volunteer in the organization, the website also allows you to sign up. there is a role for all of us to take up justice in our hand. Even if you don't feel affected now, remember the words of Martin Luther King Jr. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So look to play your part. I'd like to invite now the Deputy Mayor of Kingston and St. Andrew, the KSAC, Mr. Winston Ennis, to bring greetings to us as part of today's launch. Please do make him welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All protocol observed. First, I would like to thank Jamaicans for Justice for inviting me here this morning. I have 2 other functions this morning, but I would miss this one. It is very important that we support justice. It is a well-known fact that every well-known functioning society has at its foundation a basic trust between the citizen and the national institutions. In this sense, the Jamaican Constabulary Force, being one of the oldest institutions in Jamaica, is no doubt aware of its responsibilities and obligation to serve and protect the citizens of Jamaica, regardless of social standing, educational attainment, gender, age, but rather must deal equally and impartially with all those who is mandated to serve. This, in my view, is a critical ingredient in building and maintaining trust in citizens and law enforcement. However, when this trust is threatened, broken, or otherwise misused, this is a point at which difficulties in this relationship will arise. And it is in this regard and perceptions and impressions are formed and polarized positions is emboldened. It is therefore critically important that transparency and responsibilities are regarded as a hallmark of the relationship that must be maintained between the institutions responsible for law enforcement and the citizens. Anything short of this will leave any nation in a state of anarchy. For a generation, the truth is, Jamaica has had many episodes that can be regarded as clear mistrust between law enforcement and citizens, and it has taken several interventions and means of mending fences to rebuild this trust to a functional level. As such, all of us in this relationship must clearly understand our responsibilities in maintaining and advancing a relationship built on the solid foundation of trust and understanding, which is undergirded by truth and accountability. However, this cannot be achieved if citizens themselves do not take responsibility to understand and know their rights, which are predicated upon the fundamental Charter of Rights, passed by both Houses of Parliament less than a decade ago. Indeed, far more advocacies and education have to be a built-in feature of institutions such as Jamaican for Justice and are the citizens-based institutions that act on the behalf of the public. The primary responsibility of every citizen, therefore, is to seek knowledge, grasp a full understanding, and claim and exercise their fundamental rights within the parameters of the Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a serious time where crime and violence has overtaken us. Friday evening, tomorrow evening, 4:30, I am invited to a meeting, a citizen association meeting, with also another minister of government. Why are we having this meeting tomorrow in another section of this constituency? Listen carefully. There was a party 2 Saturdays ago, and somebody bounced into somebody in the party. And because of that bouncing, 125-year-old is at the morgue. And there is 5 people in the hospital. Sometimes we have to learn to step back. I'm sorry to be using this program to say that. Sometimes we have to learn to step back. I am invited to that meeting, and a minister of government is invited to that meeting. Why? Because the residents in the area is saying, let us have a dialogue to see if we can nip this in the bud right here. The mother of the 25-year-old that is dead, if she's listening, I want to say to her, keep on doing what you are doing, mother. I like the stand that you have taken. Her stand is that she don't want any reprisal. She wanted to stop right where it is. And so I'm asking all of us here, even when we believe we have the right and we're in the right, to just step back a little. Step back. The violence in Jamaica is a little bit too high. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ennis. Ending there with a very powerful charge. I don't know how many of you felt the way I felt a while ago, but my breath literally was taken away listening to that story at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving now to hear greater details about the Justice for All campaign. And I love that Jamaicans for Justice didn't just call it the Justice Campaign or the Justice for Jamaicans campaign. It's justice for all, because every single Jamaican must feel like they have access to it, must know what it looks like, what it feels like, and if you have to make up nice to get it, how you're gonna sound as you pursue justice. And so I ask you, in rousing fashion, to welcome the Executive Director of Jamaicans for Justice, Ms. Mikkel Jackson. I said rousing fashion, so I'm going to give you another opportunity. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I want to start by extending my appreciation for all our colleagues and stakeholders, certainly for being here. I see Equality for All Foundation. I see our partners from the International Corps. I see my board members and other stakeholders with whom we continue to have dialogue. So I'm certainly happy. And again, we start by saying all protocols observed. I don't want to get myself in any problems by forgetting anyone. Now, I think when we look at post-independence Jamaica, we have had different periods where we have demanded justice as a society. We have been influenced by the civil rights movement, certainly, and I hear Ms. Tomlinson quoting the great Martin Luther King Jr. We have had our own sense of nationalism in the country, certainly from the 70s, wherein at that time we were demanding social and economic justice. And we continue to see ourselves demanding political and civil rights as a country. The concept of the Justice for All campaign is anchored in the premise that human rights are not a privilege, they are an entitlement for all Jamaican citizens. And I think for us as an organization, the campaign is even more important when we look at the fact that we are celebrating our 60th year of independence, and we've come a far way. I'm a politics lecturer in another life, so you can imagine that there are some things I want to push ahead personally in the campaign, and I'm going to talk about some of those in short order. But our ancestors, our forefathers and mothers have done excellent work in ensuring we have universal adult suffrage, we can all vote. They have ensured that we have access to education, access to health care, and this concept of free and fair democracy. We cannot take those things lightly. It cost us too much historically. And I just want us to have that in our head spaces when we talk about justice for all. Now, before I go into the campaign, I think as a society, we witness the horrors of crime and violence daily. Just this week, I think we were all shaken by what we heard emerging in the newscast. I recognize, even on our JFJ page, we have had the families and friends, for example, of Miss Donnelly Donaldson reaching out to the organization, asking us where is JFJ and how JFJ can support. When the crime rates, again, are alarmingly high, people call on the organization to step in. And understandably so, they are angry. And when they believe that justice isn't being given to them, then the misconception about the role of human rights organization, that conversation starts. And we may get certain backlash in the public recently around the death penalty conversation, for example, and why we're not speaking on certain things. So again, before I get into that, I want to have the dialogue around the role of Jamaicans for justice. Now, when we look at our rights as citizens, we recognize that it is the state's responsibility, first and foremost, in protecting the rights that we have. That is the state's responsibility. The state ensures that we have adequate laws to govern ourselves, to protect us as a country. Where does JFJ fit in now? When the state fails in its obligation, when the state fails to adhere to the very laws that it has put in place, JFJ as a human rights organization then steps in, because we have to ensure that the state has the highest levels of integrity, has the highest levels and dedication of resources to get the job done. That is the role of Jamaicans for Justice. We hold the state responsible to ensure that investigations are done with the greatest levels of alacrity. So in other words, they move fast. The resources are there to ensure that families such as Donnelly Donaldson can get the justice that they deserve. So we are not tone deaf to what is happening. Absolutely not. And by the way, I personally read every single tweet, every single Instagram messages. I personally read them. So I want you to know and assure you that JFJ, we are monitoring the situation. We work with our state agencies. And if at an appropriate time, we believe, based on the evidence before us, that justice is not being served, then you can be assured that JFJ will step in. That is the promise of the organization to the Jamaican people. I think as well, when the crime rates are high, we hear statements from policymakers and we hear the rhetoric that the levels of crime, it's too high. Let's suspend some rights. Let us arbitrarily arrest and detain. And then the public, because we're upset as well, we also feed into the rhetoric and we say, if things not happen right, we're going to take justice in our own hands. We must reject every notion such as those. I'm urging the Jamaican people, and JFJ will help you along the way, that in understanding our rights, we recognize that the rights as protected in our Constitution, there is no hierarchy of them. There is none greater than the other. These are fundamental rights and freedoms that we have as citizens, and we must respect them all. And I want to be very clear where that is concerned. Now, we also recognize, and I think it's almost poetic, that the Justice for All campaign is being launched in Grand Spen. The first case that JFJ took on, which helped to define who we are as an organization, was when the state, through a joint military exercise, detained 52 men in Grand Spen. And 13 of those men, they came to JFJ and they say, I want to mount a legal challenge against the state. That same year, a man in his 20s, mentally ill, Michael Gale, was beaten to death by the state. And through the action of JFJ, we now have the coroner's court, for example, to ensure that independent autopsies are done as well. And again, through the advocacy of my predecessors, we have INDECOM being established in 2010. And I'm heartened when I listened to the Minister of Justice earlier that he's quite au fait, not only with our history, but with the achievements of those before us and those here now. And we continue with that great legacy of justice, because I can tell you we are a small team, but when the staff come to work in the day, they're angered by what they see in the media. So this is not a 9 to 5 for us. We wake up at 12 o'clock and we see the news report. And I have to stop doing this, by the way, WhatsApping the staff at certain hours when I'm upset myself. But we see the injustice and we believe that the Jamaican people deserve much more. I'm also heartened when I listen to the Minister of Justice recognize that the death penalty is no answer. It merely perpetuates the cycle of violence. And again, I'm happy because this is not a popular position to take. But when it comes to principle, even when it is unpopular, we must speak out. Those things are the bedrock of demanding justice. Things may not feel good. This is not PR work. This is real work to give the Jamaican people an opportunity to get equal access to justice in this country. And I want to keep on reiterating that very concept here as to why Jamaicans for Justice exist. So we will take the backlash. It is important. We will take it. But I tell you, we will never shy away from the mandate of this great organization and what we have achieved and continue to achieve as a country. I also listened keenly and the work of the Justice Ministry and others, such as the Alternate Dispute Resolution Program. I will be reaching out personally, and the organization will be engaging the Ministry of Justice in ensuring that concepts such as mediation, conflict resolution, they are dealt with. It is important. The violence is too high in this country, and it must be dealt with. We must deal with it as soon as possible. When we look at what is happening in the high schools daily, we see our youngsters, for example, being involved in lotto scamming, students and teachers being in altercation. How do we then ensure that social interventions are put in place to deal with some of these things? I reject the notion personally that social interventions, they're too expensive. These are medium-term to long-term measures that must be addressed. We must re-socialize the population to ensure that we deal with domestic disputes. You heard our deputy mayor, and I think we saw it in the Montego Bay video as well. 2 people in an argument and guns in an open public space, resolving, and I use the word resolving very sarcastically, conflict. How do we deal with things such as these? How do we deal with the fact that 1 in 4 women are abused in our society? Sexual, domestic, and gender-based violence. JFJ provides support such as these. In the past 2 years, we supported 41 women, for example, through protection orders, occupation orders. We have a few women who unfortunately suffered through sexual abuse, and because it is a criminal matter, the organization is with those women right now in court. We provide those support to our clients. Over 100 persons, men in particular, were victims of the state of emergency, where, for example, they were denied medical care. One of our clients missed the birth of his child. These are the realities of our Jamaican people. And again, we are unapologetic that we reject the state of emergency as a crime-fighting measure. Absolutely, because we have to look at the implications that it has on the poor and marginalized Jamaicans. But we recognize that there are different things and solutions, and some of them the government has started already as a matter of fairness. We see police stations being built. We have to ensure that our law enforcement, they have the resources to do their work. That is something, the welfare of our police officers, it is important, because we must ensure that those who are fighting the crime and meeting some of the most depraved criminals, they are resourced, they are supported. So we call on the government to ensure that our police officers and the security forces are well protected. I must say, however, that there are some videos for the past couple months that perhaps should be alarming for all of us when we look at the interaction between the security forces and our citizens. Some of them, we have called for some of the police officers to be removed from duty, and I urge the Minister of National Security to update the Jamaican people on the status of those investigations. Far too often we hear that this matter is being investigated, but we are never aware of the outcome of those investigations. We must demand more from our government and from the state. But we also recognize that there is much work to be done in terms of our citizens understanding their rights, but balancing those rights with the responsibilities and the duty to Jamaica in ensuring that you are protected, I am protected, and we're all protected. Again, justice for all. Now, let me just go quickly in explaining some of the key components of this campaign, and I tell you, I'm personally excited about it. Firstly, we have a little bus to the back. Some of you may have seen it already. And we're going to be doing our justice tour across the island. And we're going to be focusing more so in the marginalized communities, the low-income communities, where persons recognize what their rights are. All of those rights that we have in the Constitution, and all of the rights that we have based on those international treaties and conventions to which we're signatories. We must educate the people more. And Ms. Tomlinson nicely articulated earlier, without an understanding of what your rights are, we won't be in a position to demand them and ensure that the government is held accountable. So the Justice Tour will see the small Jamaicans for Justice team traveling across the island again, going into the communities. We're going to be having our tents, doing pop-up visits, educating people, engaging them, but also providing mobile legal clinics to persons who require some support from JFJ. Based on the mandate of the organization, certainly we will have to determine what cases we take up. But a part of that process is educating the people what is the mandate of JFJ and how best we can lend support. So these community interventions, again, are to promote human rights and responsibilities. We have our broader Know Your Rights initiative. I tell you, we have some young people in the organization, and they're very keen on the importance of social media. I'm not too sure about all of them myself, such as TikTok, but I remain open personally, right? But they're going to be online doing more Twitter lives and so on to ensure that people are engaged and we can have direct dialogue with the Jamaican population as we engage around the broader concept of know your rights. Part of that initiative, we are finalizing a contract with Dance Expressions in doing a few episodes on Know Your Rights that will deal with matters such as bail and arrest, interacting with security forces, and what are some of the major issues that the Jamaican people sometimes were not knowledgeable on. The actors, I tell you, by the way, we met with Orville, and he's so passionate about the work and the importance of the Jamaican people knowing their rights. And I personally cannot wait for those 10 episodes to be finalized and launched. We also have our Let's Talk Justice Radio program. We're still finalizing the deal on that, so I won't state which radio program it will be aired on, but I think you can perhaps take the hint in terms of who is covering the event for today. So the Let's Talk Justice Radio program will see the legal team being on air weekly, engaging stakeholders and experts around different matters. You're going to be educated on what are the issues that affect Jamaican people. And we are going to be having call-in, so the listeners can call the program, they can pose their questions to us, and we will answer them. I tell you as well, after our position on the death penalty was made known public, for those perhaps who weren't aware, persons called the office, a number of them were angry, as you can imagine. And we took those calls. It took a lot of out our days where we had to bring home work in the nights, but we saw it important to take the calls. And by the end of some of those conversations, persons were either standing in support of the position or saying, me still not support the death penalty, but me get where you come from. And that is the importance of public education. So I encourage persons, when this radio program is launched, to call in and speak to the team. We stand ready to listen and to support. We have a booklet that will be that will be released on August 6th. And that booklet is called The Constitution Made Simple. And it's a Know Your Rights booklet. Now, we're very excited about that booklet because what it does, it explains to the readers the structure of the state. Because I think some of those civics knowledge is missing. So we're a constitutional monarchy. We have our prime minister who leads the executive branch. We have the legislative branch. And then we have the judiciary branch, which is independent of the other two. So when we say that the government ought not to be interfering in certain cases that are public at the moment, I think the understanding of some of those concepts is important. And this booklet provides that. But the booklet then goes into explaining in simple ways your rights, your responsibilities, and the avenues for redress if those rights are breached by the state. So you're going to be understanding what rights to life, liberty, and security means. You're going to be understanding freedom of expression, freedom of movement, freedom of opinion, that it is okay to criticize the government. Respectfully, though. I think that is also important for us to recognize. So those things are in that book, and I tell you, again, I'm excited about that particular output of the campaign. We have this thing called Calling All Creatives. That is something I'm personally excited about. Everything you will recognize, I'm sorry. The website is Artivism for Change. ARTIVISM, change.com. Please go on it. It is now live. This initiative is basically merging the creative space with social justice. So we are opening an invitation, extending an invitation to students up to sixth form as well as professional creatives, to submit an expression of interest by September 16th, wherein if you like dance, if you paint, if you draw, if you can sing, if you can produce short films, you can submit your budget, your proposal to JFJ. And for students, if you are shortlisted, the students will receive up to $100,000. And the school that the student represents will get $50,000. For the professional creatives, you can receive funding support of up to $750,000. And the idea is that you're promoting social justice. I like Ding Dong's bounce song. I think it's the only dance I can do. So I'm really excited about the possibility of getting a justice dance. So all of the dancers here, please submit something. I think we need to be excited about justice. We need to be excited about our rights because it is too important for us not to. Our generation needs that excitement because they have to believe that the state is here to protect them. So again, the campaign, I didn't say this earlier, so I won't say again. It's a 3-year campaign, but all of the activities that I mentioned earlier will be done in a matter of weeks, and some of them, they have started already. So please spread the word. The Artivism for Change website in particular, again, it has been launched, it's live. Please encourage persons to visit the website and read through the eligibility criteria and submit their expressions of interest. I really, really hope, JFJ hopes, the board who is here hopes that the public will support and will submit accordingly. Lastly, we're going to be sharing a video, a song that was done for our campaign. And Mr. Wayne Booth, he's here. We called Mr. Booth one day and we asked him to write a nice song that is promoting justice and social reform. And in a matter of days, actually the next day he submitted the words to us. We reviewed it, we made a few tweaks, and less than a week later, the song was fully produced. And I tell you, we're happy about that song. And I'm going to ask the technical team to show the song and the video that was done. And after, we will invite Mr. Wayne Booth to perform the song live. And please, if you feel like dancing, you can dance. I hope that you catch a few words of the song while it is being played. But just get excited for justice. Get excited for justice for all of us. Please. Thank you so much.
Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights. Respecting human rights. What a wonderful nation this could be. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights, respecting human rights. What a wonderful nation this could be. If you live downtown in a Tibari garden, or if you live uptown a Cherry garden, yo, equal rights under the law. You hear? Equal rights under the law. My youth, remember the rights of the children. It's unlawful not to educate them. Don't ever do nothing to hurt them. Protect them from crime and violence. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights, respecting human rights. What a wonderful nation this could be. For Mario Dean, where the justice do? Matthew Lee, where the justice do? Johnny Zayin, where the justice do? Nakia Jackson, where the justice do? Where the justice do? Jamaicans, by justice, the people's champion. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be.
All right, I'm asking Mr. Selector or Miss Selector, I don't know who is responsible for pressing play. Just a hit play on that song one more time. Justice, justice for all, justice under the law. I feel like that needs to be ringing in our ears this morning.
Our mission is love, our vision is love. Jamaicans, by justice, the people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights, respecting human rights. What a wonderful nation this could be. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination. Justice.
While we wait
justice
to
for
be
all.
joined
Justice
by our
under the law.
performer Wayne Booth,
Justice, Jamaica demand.
I'm asking
Right to
the
life, right to
driver for
liberty.
a Mitsubishi that's
Justice,
blocking
justice
at the
for all.
moment, license plate
Justice
7854
under the law.
JB.
Justice, people demand.
I'm sorry
Right
to
life and
broadcast that
security.
all over Jamaica, but we do need to have that Mitsubishi blocking.
This country could be.
So if that sounds like you, 7874 JB, please make your way to facilitate the vehicle being moved. Checking to see if Mr. Booth is ready to go. I see some movement. I see mic in hand. So come back again with the track so we can hear from the man himself, Mr. Wayne Booth. Justice for all. A round of applause. Make him welcome, please.
Where in this whole wide world is any hope for you and me? Right here in Jamaica, we can be what we want to be. Once we trust the Almighty, start living in unity. Jamaica, Jamaica, our paradise in the West Indies. Jamaica, Jamaica, time to bring back the love and unity, so you and me can enjoy our country. She's wonderful, she's beautiful, our island Jamaica. Come up, we put down the guns and bring back the fun and just make Jamaica nice again. And a full time so we cut out the crime and build up we country and start celebrating life and just eliminate strife. We need peace and harmony. We want love and unity. Jamaica, Jamaica, our paradise in the West Indies. Jamaica, Jamaica, time to bring back the love and unity, so you and me can enjoy our community. She's wonderful, she's beautiful, our island Jamaica. We have to accept the truth, we have to uplift the youth. If we want to make that place safe again, and a full time so we give them a blind, make them step up in a life. No more war and crime, they want to live a better life. Yo, give them more opportunity for a better society. Jamaica, Jamaica, our paradise in the West Indies. Jamaica, Jamaica, time to bring back the love and unity, so you and me can enjoy our country. She's wonderful, she's beautiful, this island Jamaica. We have one life to live, come up, we live it. Yes. Enough love to give, come up, we give it. Yes, one life to live, enough love to give. Out of many we are one. Where in the world can I achieve what I want to achieve? Where in this whole wide world is any chance for you and me? Right here in Jamaica, we can achieve what we want to achieve. Once we trust the Almighty, start living in unity. Jamaica, Jamaica, our paradise in the West Indies. Jamaica, Jamaica, time to bring back the love and unity, so you and me can enjoy our country. She's wonderful, she's beautiful, our island Jamaica. Jamaica, Jamaica, our paradise in the West Indies. Jamaica, Jamaica, time to bring back the love and unity, so you and me can enjoy our country. She's wonderful, she's beautiful, our island Jamaica. My name is Wayne Booth. I want to thank Jamaicans for Justice for this wonderful opportunity. And as Marcus Garvey said, the acceptance of injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So if you live in a Tivoli garden or you live in a Cherry Gardens, don't feel safe if you're not concerned about the people who are downtrodden. Lasting peace will be an impossibility as long as there's injustice and inequality. Thank you very much. You don't have a track. You have a track? Okay. I thought you didn't have a track. The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion. Justice. Justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice. Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice. Justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights. Respecting human rights. What a wonderful nation this could be. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the Creator. for equal rights and opportunities. Gun criminals and gunmen, and police brutalization, class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights, respecting human rights. What a wonderful nation this could. Yo, if you live downtown in a Tivoli Garden, or if you live uptown at Cherry Garden, yo, equal rights under the law. You hear? Equal rights under the law. My youth, remember the rights of the children. It's unlawful not to educate them. Don't ever do nothing to hurt them. Protect them from crime and violence. Justice. Thank you very, very much.
Another round of applause again for Wayne Booth, writer and performer of the official soundtrack that's going to be driving the JFJ's Justice for All campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, justice for all under the law. Justice for all under the law. I want to take this opportunity to thank you very much. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you of the call for creatives. The Artivism for Change platform is now open. That's ARTIVISM 4change.com. And it's going to be merging the creative space with the social justice activism that's being led by JFJ. I'm also taking the opportunity to acknowledge and welcome Inspector Archer from the Grand Spend Police Station, who I'm told is with us this morning. Thank you so much, Inspector Archer, for joining us and signaling again a recognition of all the actors that must play their part for the wheels of justice to turn in this country. We hear it said often that the wheels turn slowly. Jamaicans for Justice is here to bring the grease. Am I correct? Bringing the grease and the mechanics who may be needed. I don't think I've set this properly. There we go. The mechanics that may be needed to support the movement and the greasing of those wheels of justice. We have rights and we want them. We have rights and we want them. We have responsibilities and we will honor them. We have responsibilities and we will honor them. There is room for reform, and so we will recommend them. That is the role that JFJ is playing, helping us to recognize and access the rights, recognize and honor the responsibilities as individuals, but also the responsibility of the state, and to reform where necessary the legislative framework to drive the protection and the access to our human rights in this country. I'd like to open the floor now for questions from members of the media who may be here, but also members of the general public in the audience or specially invited guests. Even if there are project partners who may have a few clarifying questions at this time, please signal by the raising of your hand. We have a roving microphone that can be brought to you. Are you here with questions? Are you here with any comments? Are you here with any recommendations, any gaps that you are seeing that could make the Justice for All campaign more inclusive and more impactful? I'd like to share as well the social media platforms for Jamaica for Justice. That's JA for Justice. If you follow them on Twitter, I know the team is connected and perhaps you're listening on air, watching on the live stream, have a question, I'm inviting you to tweet their account with that question if you have it. And if we do hear that question in time, it can be responded to while we are live and on air for the benefit of all listeners. But if there's anybody in the audience now who has a question, we will take it now. So I'll take the privilege as moderator to pose the first question. I don't see any hands yet. Hopefully I will inspire courage and bravery. When is the bus getting on the road? I see a lovely justice bus in the background. And I want to know when that beautiful bus will get on the road, what services people will be able to access when they see the justice bus out a road. Do we just run into the middle of the road and fan it down and ask for justice? Or do we get a calendar for where the bus will be so we can be there too and get some more information? So I'm inviting Ms. Mikkel Jackson, Executive Director. Oh, we're handing this over to Keron? All right. Keron, where are you? I saw you earlier. He's on the way. So the man with the answers will join us now to tell us where we can expect to see this justice bus and what is the bus all about.
All right, good morning, everyone. So the justice tour will begin the week of August 16th, and we will be, the week of August 16th, and we will be in the parishes of St. Anne, and St. James. So we will be in St. Anne's Bay on the 16th, and we will be in St. Ocherius, right by the pharmacy, and we will also be in Montego Bay within that week. All right. Over. So we will be offering consultations predominantly. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you need to be aware of the services that are provided by JFJ, you can come to us and we will be able to provide you with the necessary information, and we can also refer you to the requisite services and the lead persons within JFJ to provide those services.
Thank you very much, Keron. Is there any other question that we would like to pose to the team leaders here as part of the Justice for All campaign launch? If you do remember, you can raise your hand and we will take you. It's important for us to recognize that abandoning the justice process does not allow justice to reach us any sooner. To be frustrated and fatigued doesn't ensure that you will access justice. And certainly, ignorance doesn't get you any closer to the rights that you have. In fact, it may be a barrier that you just don't know what rights deserve to be yours. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it to the end of the formal program, but we will be beginning a community intervention immediately after the end of our broadcast. In fact, as we speak, inside the Peace Park in the Grand Spend community, we have 2 tents, fully branded, open and ready for you to access. The justice bus is actually on location, so if you want to be the first to see it, to touch it, and begin to access justice, now would be the time. You can join us here at the Peace Park in Grand Spend. We'll be here until 1 p.m., and you will have access to the team here to answer any questions you may have. As we close for the day and prepare to receive the vote of thanks from Jade Williams of the JFJ team, I feel like justice I go get a bus this year. Me feel so. You hear artists talk about them want a bus, and this year me I go bus, and me hear this. I feel through this Justice for All campaign, justice I forget a bus this year. And through your work, Mikkel, your team, as you say, at work, accountable, that justice can finally take center stage, that Jamaicans can stop asking for justice and feel as though justice is right there with them at all times. It is not missing. It is not inaccessible. It is not on the fringes trying to get a bus. It bus this year. Real bus on 4 wheels, but also publicly in the cultural space. We have to get used to justice now. I think we've gotten too used to injustice. And we're going to bust justice this year. Am I right? Welcoming now to move the vote of thanks, Policy and Advocacy Specialist at Jamaicans for Justice, Jade Williams.
Okay, morning everybody. You know, when I saw Crystal coming up, putting the mic in the mic stand, I knew I'd have a problem. Every time the mic is in the mic stand, it has to be adjusted for me because I'm so tiny. But hello, I'm very pleased to see so many of us here. I know it is quite hot. So I'm grateful for everyone coming out and supporting us launching our Justice for All campaign. I want to give a special acknowledgement to Minister Chuck, who was here earlier. Some of you may have missed him, but he gave our keynote address and he did make some very salient points, and one that I want to go on as it was a recent issue for us at JFJ, is that as the Justice Minister, Minister Chuck acknowledges that there are some serious issues with the imposition of the death penalty as a mode of punishment for those who are criminal perpetrators. He acknowledges that the state should not be the persons who mete out violence against his citizens, and we are 100% behind that kind of messaging. So once again, we thank Minister Chuck for his presence. I'd also like to thank Mr. Ennis, who is the councillor for Kingston and St. Andrew area. He came and gave a very short speech, but I'm grateful for his support, as we at JFJ, we've been in Kingston since 1999, so we're grateful to see that those who are running the city are here to support us as well. I'd also like to give special thanks to our JFJ board directors who made themselves available for us today. Ms. Yvonne Lee, who shared her story with us, and Mr. Sean Major Campbell, who gave our greetings earlier. We thank you. And of course, we thank those who are here from our international core. We thank representatives from the Argentinian consulate who would have came here, just Jose Grande, and we also thank Mr. Daniel Shepherd from the British High Commission. Those representatives who are our partners, or redress partners, or complaint partners. I see representatives from the Equality Group. I see persons from E for Life, persons from Jamaica Aid Support for Life, who are some of those who help to channel those complaints to us, and in such doing are partners in the redress and justice system that we're trying to build here. I also greeted several members of the Grand Spend community who saw the commotion and just came over to see what was happening, to participate, stop by the tent to look at some of the things that we have out. So I appreciate the support. And one thing I can say, we are original Grand Spend members. We are members of this community, and we are very, very grateful to always see the support of the community coming out. Whenever we need them, they are here, they are mobilized, and they are ready. And finally, I'd like to thank, well, not finally, I'd also like to thank the Grand Spend Police Station, who would have been instrumental in helping us set up here. And we see that we had the presence of members of the police force here to observe the proceedings. And we, as Minister Chuck, Mikkel, other members who had came up and said, it is integral that we have all actors present to understand what our goals are and for us to reach them. I see JAMP here, I see the NIA here, and they are, pardon? I'm not hearing. But yes, yes, they are some key partners for us. Indicom was represented here as well. So we appreciate everyone coming out. I'd also like to thank Ms. Tomlinson for coming, lending her support, being our moderator. You're very lively. I see that you're bringing in the attention if it was waning, so I appreciate that. And I also appreciate you being one of the persons that ask questions. I appreciate that very much. Okay, so, and finally, I'd like to thank our team here at JFJ. We did put in a lot of work to get this done. I'm glad to see it pulled off. And I hope that we don't run out of here. We stay a little for the community intervention. We can take a look at the bus. We can take a look at our IEC materials. And all of these things would have been the efforts of the team. So once again, we thank you very much for your presence. And we hope that you would have gained something useful out of this session. And we'll continue to gain useful things from JFJ. Thank you.
So as not to cause any vertical related embarrassment, I'm going to keep the mic stand right here, Jade. I just tilted the microphone up a little bit so it looked like we're the same size. But it was great to hear from you. And of course, just recapping all that has been said in service to and in honor to the work that is about to begin through the Justice for All campaign. I am certainly excited to see what will come as fruit of this effort. I know it will not be a wasted effort. And I can imagine the listeners on RJR, the viewers who are on YouTube, feeling eager, feeling assured, feeling confident that JFJ, as you always have, will continue to show up for them as they seek to access justice. I want to remind all the participants here today, all the attendees who have not yet registered to visit one of the justice tents, that's what we're going to call it, right? The justice tent. Ensure that you are registered before you leave. If you have not already done so, this is your reminder. And so we come to the end of our formal program, but I remind you that the Jamaicans for Justice team will be here inside the Peace Park at Grand Spen in St. Andrew up until 1 p.m. today. So if you have questions, if you need to access justice, if you're trying to figure out if a right was breached or if you have a responsibility to meet or a next step, please do come out to the Peace Park between now and 1 p.m. And so while we transition from this tent to another justice tent, and of course hand back to the live broadcast team on RJR, I'm inviting Music Man to play again the Justice for All track. Let it be the anthem as we work to bust justice this year. Yes? Thank you all. It has been my pleasure. My name is Crystal Tomlinson. I'm wishing for you a fantastic day.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights, respecting human rights. What a wonderful nation this could be. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights, respecting human rights. What a wonderful nation this could be. If you live downtown in a Tibari Garden, or if you live uptown a Cherry Garden, yo, equal rights under the law. You hear? Equal rights under the law. My youth, remember the rights of the children. It's unlawful not to educate them. Don't ever do nothing to hurt them. Protect them from crime and violence. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights, respecting human rights. What a wonderful nation this could be. For Mario Dean, where the justice day? Matthew Lee, where the justice day? Johnny Zanin, where the justice day? Nakia Jackson, where the justice day? Where the justice day? Jamaicans, for justice, the people's champion. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be.